Yeah, now the mic is okay, yes. Hello everyone, welcome, a warm welcome to Terrami's educational program. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to all of you to join us today in this webinar. And thank you very much for taking time. I believe that with your presence here in this webinar, this webinar will be profoundly meaningful. Next, also I'd like to express my thanks to my colleagues for preparing and arranging this webinar. This webinar have two parts. First part is my presentation, and second part is discussion about your valuable comments and questions. So the subject of this seminar is ESG framework that and KPIs that you know that the ESG is standing for environmental, social, and governance, and the KPI standing for key performance indicators. Today, we will talk about these two components, and you know that these two are closely connected elements that help organization move from broad sustainability commitments to measurable performance. Before we dive into frameworks and the characteristics of them, I like to have a scientific definition about the frameworks. Frameworks are the systematic structures that use for defining, measuring, disclosing, communicating, and reporting environmental, social, and governance information. This in frameworks must cover consistency, comparability, and decision relevance. Each framework have four main roles that turning the abstract notion or descriptive sustainabilities, responsibilities, and resiliency into quantified measures. We need the quantifiable measures for comparing and for other things. Also, frameworks create an standard methods for collecting data. It's very important. Reliable data, verified data, and clear data is important for us to ensure that the consistency of outcomes over time and between firms is done. Also, another role of frameworks is making it possible to compare companies, industries, and even countries. This is important. And frameworks allowing for inference and decision-making by associating ESG performance with risk, opportunity, and impacts. Oh yes, in this slide, you see a table about the traditional frameworks and ESG frameworks. A key question is there any difference between traditional frameworks and ESG frameworks? The answer is yes, because the traditional frameworks focuses on some things that it's not important in the ESG frameworks, and ESG frameworks focuses on many issues, many subjects and aspects. We compare these two from many aspects: main purposes, core focuses, philosophy, and stakeholder logic, and other things. As you see, materiality is important aspects of comparing these two. Traditional frameworks like ISO, ISO standards, and other things, MS, EMS, and EIA that you use for environmental management systems, and something like this. From the materiality, a majority of traditional focuses on financial materiality while ESG frameworks focuses on double materiality. They consider impacts and potentials. For example, for an organization, ESG frameworks compare impacts outside in or inside out. It's important. What happened when an organization work on peripheral environment and the peripheral environment impacts on organization. About the compliance in traditional frameworks, driving force and pressure of compliance is only managerial or technical, but in ESG frameworks, often to regulation, disclosure, and market expectation, public expectation, and other aspects. So when we dive into the frameworks, around the world, we have more than 600 frameworks. Each of one have the specific objectives, have some characteristics. And so this is very important to what framework is appropriate for us. Is a framework or a rating system? Sometimes we confuse these frameworks. For example, when we're talking about the GRI, I think that is a framework, but when we go into the MSCI and we see that is a scoring framework. Which one is better for us? We classified these frameworks and rating system separately from many dimensions: core definition, primary function, main output, rule in ESG, typical users, and ESG values. For example, or mandatory status. Sometimes frameworks are voluntary or mandatory, depending on the jurisdiction and framework. For example, CDSR is mandatory in the EU system, EU territory, but the rating system and that system that give us a score of ESG are voluntary and they are market driven. With the many frameworks and differences between frameworks, we have to have a base for classification. In this presentation, we consider multi-dimension system from functional purposes, obligation, scope, type, and origins, and classified ESG frameworks. For example, from functional purposes, the theory of operational theory, information asymmetry theory, and practical utility are important. From the obligation system, in the functional purposes, you can see the classification of network or frameworks from assessment frameworks, reporting frameworks, disclosure frameworks, and scoring frameworks. And about the obligation, we focuses on legal theory, regulatory governance, compliance, risk, and authority sources. Sometimes this obligation is mandatory in some areas, for example, in Euro countries, in American countries. Sometimes some frameworks are mandatory. For some frameworks from state power, or maybe is a obligation by the local communities or locals. And so some frameworks categorize in this category of obligation. From the geographical scopes, we focuses on jurisdiction law, international trade law, regional integration, market access requirements. For example, global frameworks from UN protocols, UN convention, ISO emerge from international agreements transcending national boundaries. Companies must be comply with the frameworks in jurisdiction. In the geographical area. From the ESG topics, focuses on materiality theory, double materiality, as I said in the previous slides, and urgency hierarchy. For example, climate TCFD focuses on climate and most urgent due to Paris Agreement, or TNFD, task group for natural task group related natural financial disclosures, focuses on biodiversity and emerging next social governance issues. Another theoretical basis for classification is target audiences that focuses on stakeholder theory, principal agent problem, market segmentation, information demand. These foundations help us to choose the appropriate target audiences. For example, maybe audiences are investors, or stakeholders or publics. For example, investors need information to monitor companies, or regulator also need information to monitor companies to auditing of the companies. From a view of organizational origin, the foundation theories are institutional theory, power authority, political economy, and adoption drivers. For example, UN frameworks adopted via international agreement, or EU directives that are mandatory for doing in the EU continent. So in this table, we compare comparison of popular ESG frameworks. Around the internet, around the text used, you heard some name of some frameworks, for example, GRI, IRF, IFRS, S1, S2, CSRD, and others. We compare all of these frameworks from that theoretical basis. Functional purposes, obligation, geographic scope, ESG, focuses, target audience type, and the theoretical basis. Let me check the T and FT, that is focuses on nature and biodiversity. It's a disclosure framework that we, as you know, we have 3 levels of disclosure, 1, 2, and 3, from disclosed to publics to secret and board of management that only they know about the this level of disclosure. This framework from the view of obligation is voluntary, but in EU after 2026 is mandatory. This from the geographical scope, this framework is global and regional. As I said, for EU is a regional for EU, and focuses on biodiversity and nature specific, and also consider water resources and climate change. Target audiences is investors, and focus on corporate, and that focus on the firms and the investors that need the data to have to invest in these organizations. Type is a framework, and the key theoretical basis is materiality theory, double materiality. As I said, the many of ESG frameworks use double materiality in this context. In this next slide, you can see other systems. For example, MSCI and Sustainalytics. These two are very famous and very common framework in the ESG, but it's only for assessing and scoring. These two, despite of famously, despite of worldwide use, they are not framework for ESG. As I said, ESG prepare a road for to defining and measuring the impacts. But these two frameworks only have a scoring system and compare the firms and companies along with them. This two, from the view of obligation, are voluntary, and geographical scopes of these two is global, international. The target audiences is investors, because investors need a score, the ESG score of company for investment. A type of these frameworks are rating system. They are not framework, ESG framework. They are rating framework for ESG, and they give us a score of an organization. So in types, you can see rating, standards, or a framework. In next slide, I explain the difference between ESG frameworks, standards, and scores. Frameworks are guiding principle for ESG reporting, like GRI, CSRD, SASB, that focuses on industrial, and this framework have 77 standards for specific industries, or TCFD, that it focuses on climate change financial disclosure. Another terms that we used at the previous tables was standard, technical requirement, and specific metrics. Metrics are the data that use for KPIs, and ESRS is the good example of the standards. The ESRS is mandatory in the EU and is EU standards, and SASB also have standards for industries. And scoring and rating, like MSCI and Sustainalytics, they give us a rating system and the comparing system for many companies. In MSCI ESG rating, the range of AAA to CCC. AAAs are leader in the ESG, and CCC are a lagger in the ESG. And Sustainalytics focuses on risk rating. And the best use of these terms is the framework plus standards. Frameworks give us context, and standards give us tools. It's best used together for full transparency, because of one of the main principles of ESG frameworks are transparency and completeness. So after this slide, in this slide, we focuses on advantage and disadvantage or challenge of ESG frameworks. Using ESG frameworks can reduce risks and improve financial performance, and make a trust for others, like investors and stakeholders or publics even, to invest and to support an organization. Human resources and innovation and resiliency are another advantages of ESG frameworks. Resiliency in previous, that was not in parts of ESG, but some frameworks we have that focuses on resiliency, and they call ESGR, that they are related to resiliency. But innovation is very important in the ESG frameworks and help us to solve many unsolvable problems. Also, using these ESG frameworks help us to promote efficiency and effectiveness. As you know, effectiveness including consistency, sufficiency, and efficiency. And ESG frameworks help us to effectiveness, and efficiency is the base for the ESG frameworks, and this is the advantage of this system. And challenges that we have in ESG frameworks, very important issue: greenwashing risk, because some companies use the frameworks, doesn't work really, and only have a propaganda about these activities. They don't really do it, but they say, I do it, we do it. Yeah. And another challenges is complexity and resource intensity. It's very, very, very complex issues to find the better KPIs, better or appropriate framework, and the resources are another problems for resource for data gathering, data collecting, resource for challenging, for changing are the problems or challenge of ESG frameworks. And also lack of standardization. We don't have any mandatory standards or any ratified framework. All frameworks any organization can use any framework. It's not in the standards. Fortunately, in recent years, some countries have a mandatory ESG system or ESG law and regulations. And another issue is implementation of this ESG suggestion. When we are working on the data and we collecting data and analyzing data, we can find many challenges, many weakness. Yeah, and then we have to promote or cover and solve these problems. Yeah, but this is very important to. It's a very challenging issue to implement the suggestion and results of ESG. So after this slides, we need to choose a right ESG framework for a company or organization. We have to pass many steps, talk to a stakeholder, to define needs, analyze peers, analyze other systems like us, to what they disclose and what they need for disclosing. And the next step is assessing impacts. Determine where disclosure has largest impact for your business, and align with the strategy, aligning the ESG framework to business strategy. It's very important, because when they are the separates, the authorities of organization ignore the ESG results. But when they are allowing them and they are integrated with them, yeah, they have to do the results of ESG. So another steps is considering regulatory. If sometimes some issues is mandatory and we have to consider in the ESG frameworks, and sometimes they are voluntary. And Then the next is considering resources, financial resources, human resources, and equipment resources. We need to consider all of them, and this is the another complexity of ESG. Frameworks, here in this table, we have a guideline for the selection of the framework based on priority. Priority is important issue in the performance and implementing of ESG frameworks. For example, EU compliance is a priority for EU countries. And recommended framework is CSRD, ESRS, and it's only mandatory frameworks in the EU. From the view of investors, some frameworks focuses on investing system, SASB, TCFD, PRI. And here is the financial materiality is important. From the view of, if our priority is climate and the impacts of climate and global warming, TCFD, SBTI, and CDP are the best framework. TCFD, this is Task Force Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, and SBT is Science-Based Target. CDP also Carbon Disclosure Project. They focuses on climate and the impacts of climate change. From the view of net zero commitment, after the Paris agreements and the IPCC recommended the net zero, and SBTI, this is the science-based targets, science-based framework, is the good for this priority. Okay, as you see that these frameworks have overlapping. In this table, we bring some overlapping between frameworks. CSRD, ERS with GRI are 70 or 85% overlapping because they consider impacts and topical convergence. And CSRD with ESRS, all these two are used in EU countries. 95% have overlapping because they are the same, and they are using same as same. GRI with ESRS have 70 or 85% overlapping. And another issue is how ESG frameworks work. ESG frameworks have many, we have to consider many steps to work with ESG frameworks. Identify relevant KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. At the next slides, I consider and I focus on these KPIs. This is parts of my presentation, and I'll explain that at other slides, and identifying and finding the relevant KPIs for organization is very important, because the KPIs are measurable metrics. After the identifying relevant KPIs, we have to collect data. As I said, the ESG frameworks is a systematic method to collecting data, gathering quantitative data and qualitative data. We have to focus on quantitative data, because when we try have to compare the companies, we need the quantitative data, and qualitative data are good, but not it's enough for. Sorry, I muted. Yeah, Now I'm unmuted. Yes. I said about the ESG frameworks work and the steps that we have to consider for working with the frameworks. So the end steps is improve continuously. Continual improvement is important. When you take results, you have to improve your organization, improve your work, and ESG help us to identify risks, opportunities, and improvement areas. For evaluating ESG frameworks, we have many criteria that here in this table you can see the very important criteria: validity, reliability, comparability, transparency, materiality, and quantifiability. One of the important issue and criteria is transparency. The question is methodology publicly documented? Is good for public? And public can give results and also understand the results, because sometimes some scientific person write the documents that is very scientifically and is very very hard to understand for publics. So we have to consider transparency and the target audiences and write like they want, not write scientifically. For example, in some frameworks, we have non-technical executing summary. It's important for decision makers, for publics. So transparency is very important, and completeness. Consider all aspects of work, all problems, weak points, strength points, and all. So the question is, does it cover all relevant ESG topics? That it's avoid gaps, avoid to bring gaps and cover the gaps. Or about the quantifiability, reduce biases. And about the transparency, enable verification. So this is the second part of my presentation about the KPIs. First, let me have a definition for performance measures. Performance measures is a quantifiable metrics or standards that provide objective evidence and set us how an individual, team, or process or organization achieving these specific objectives. In this term, we have a hierarchical classification of performance measures, from mission indicators to key performance indicators. Mission indicators are aspirational and tell us what you want to do. And result indicators that it's retrospective and it's related to past, that tell us what you have done. What do you done? Yeah. And the performance indicators tell us what you must do. It's related to present time, and it's a diagnostic. But the key performance indicators are very complete and consider present and future. And the key performance indicators are actionable. These indicators tell us what to do to highly increase performance, checking our performance, checking trends of performance. And if we want to have an example of this hierarchy about the measuring system, in ESG, for mission indicators, you can have achieved net zero by 2050. That is a mission, is a future aspirational goal. For result indicators, total GHG emissions, for performance indicator, energy intensity, and for KPI performance, scope 1 by 20% this year. As you know, we have 3 scopes and 4 scopes about the GHG emissions. Scope 1 is direct emission, scope 2 is indirect emission, scope 3 is supply, about the supply chain emissions, and newly scope 4 that you can find in the text and other systems. It's only a suggestion, but not ratified yet. It's about the reducing greenhouse gases. So let me have a KPIs definition. Key performance indicators are critical quantifiable indicators that measure progress toward our objectives, our results. They serve as a foundation for performance management. It's very important. They serve foundation for performance management across all types of organization. It's worldwide. It's a cover a whole systems, organization, activity, projects, and process, even process. So each KPIs have primary aims, provide clarity that we need for clarification in the ESG frameworks, measure success or measure how to gain to objects, how to cover our objects, and how far are from objects. Enable data-driven decision-making, make a decision with reliable data and very powerful system for decision. Also create accountability and drive performance improvement. As I said, we need continual improvement through an organization, and these KPIs prepare us a performance improvement and detect issue early than happen. It's important. So about the ESG KPIs, that was the primary aims of all KPIs. But ESG KPIs focuses on measuring sustainability, ensure compliance with law, regulation, standards, and enable benchmarking. As you know, we have 2 types of benchmarking. Absolute benchmarking, like its standards, like limited values, and relative benchmarking, that it's compare with another firms, another organization, that the ESG KPIs enable us for benchmarking. Sometimes you don't have any data, and you want to have use ESG framework without any compare with the other organization. So in this regard, you use absolute benchmarking, and in a given time, for example, in next year, 10 years, or 5 years. So the KPIs, like frameworks, are different. ESG KPIs are different from traditional KPIs in view of nature, data, standards, time horizon, stakeholder, and verification. For classification of KPIs, we have many bases. First and famous and common is impact-based KPIs that measure organization impact on the world or on the pre-fraud environment. This is the impacts of company on pre-fraud environment. We said inside out. The foundation of this classification is environmental ethics. The organization have to consider environmental ethics and public expectation and nature rights, natural rights, right of nature, and moral responsibility. We can, as an example, we can say that GHG emission scope 1 and 2, 3, and 4, water withdrawal, waste generated, and biodiversity impacts or human right violation are the example of this kind of classification. GRI, CSRD, and ESRS use systems or this classification. Another basis, financial risk-based KPIs that measure the world's impact on organization. That means the impacts of peripheral environment on company or on organization. We said outside in. Foundation of this classification is shareholder value theory, financial risk, financial materiality. As you see, they focuses on only financial materiality, not double materiality. And sometimes these KPIs make a difference in the results. Example of these KPIs, we can say carbon intensity, climate-related risk, employee turnover costs, supply chain, and disruption risks. SASB and TCFD use these financial metrics and KPIs. Shareholder-based KPIs is another classification, and they measure expectation of multi-stakeholders, investors, shareholders, publics, and others. The foundation of these KPIs are the stakeholder theory, as I said, what stakeholders need, social justice, and stakeholder rights. Employee, community, environmental also have rights. The key example of these KPIs are employee satisfaction, gender pay gap, customer satisfaction, community engagement score, supply chain labor standards. GRI and WEF, World Economic Forum, use these KPIs. And the last but not the least, strategic-based KPIs that measure the organization ambition and strategies. It's back to organizations that have sustainability strategies for future, for a given time. They use this foundation, value-based theory, strategic sustainability, and sustainability innovation. It's very important. Sustainability is an innovation driver for these KPIs. For example, we can say renewable energy, percentage of use of renewable energies, circular economy revenues, carbon reduction target, employee training hours, and diversity in innovation team. SBST, SBTI, and SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals from United Nations, are the example of frameworks that use strategic base. And SBTI also is Science-Based Target Initiative, use these KPIs. Okay, when we dive into the KPIs and the across the platform, we can see the differences. In this table, we compare platforms from the number of KPIs per topic, GHG emissions, topic covered in versus outputs, and others. There is many difference between the results of a given framework with another. For example, maybe you can use MSCI framework for scoring, and you can take a number or alphabetic grade for leader or lagger, as I said, AAA, 2A, or 333, and B or BBB, and another. But this organization, if use Sustainalytics, it's a different score because of number of KPIs per topics. For example, one platform maybe use more than 28 KPIs, but another maybe use 20 KPIs. It's make a difference. It's make a mistake. It's make a bias. Yeah. So, about the GHG emissions range from 1 to 47 KPIs for corporate GHG emissions. We have 47 KPIs for measuring GHG emissions. And some consider only scope 1 and 2. Include scope 3. This makes a difference. From other views, materiality, also controversially based KPIs, we can see the differences. And what should I do when we find these differences? We should identify which KPI matter most for your stakeholder, investor, regulator, or customers. First of all, choose your audience, and then select appropriate KPI for your audiences, for your target audiences. If your audiences are regulators, you have to consider obligations, obligatory frameworks, and align with the specific frameworks. Only use specific frameworks rather than trying to optimize for all rating, equally focus on quantitative output KPIs where possible, as they are more meaningful than input-based tick box metrics. We know that the KPIs are important, but qualitative data and qualitative KPIs are not appropriate for us. We have to focus on quantitative KPIs. Here in this table, you can see the 10 most productive ESG KPIs that used in 2025. From view of environment, or from the environment pillar of ESG, carbon footprint, carbon intensity, energy consumption, renewable ratio are important KPIs. For example, when we're using carbon intensity, emission per revenue or unit emission, the intensity is based on revenue or based on a unit product. How many product that produce this organization, and carbon intensity used for the carbon intensity. It's better for benchmarking across company sizes. As I said, we have two type of benchmarking, absolute and relative. This KPI help us to benchmarking if we don't have any data. Energy consumption, water usage efficiency, waste recycling. Another KPIs that's very important and used as a metrics for circular economy and regulatory requirements. How many waste will recycle or reuse or others? From the view of social, workplace diversity, employee turnover rate, hiring hours per employee is important, and about the governance pillar, we can use board independence, percentage of independent directors, and anti-corruption policies and incidents, about the activities about bribery, anti-bribery, anti-corruption. And this is a risk for management and for legal compliance. Is important KPIs. So let me wrap up the presentation. As a result, the framework determines the form of disclosure, topics, formats, scope, and assurance. And KPIs are the performance measurements within this structure. Every framework is designed for its own purposes. For example, GRI used for impact. Because as I said, the GRI used impact-based KPIs. SAB or IFRS used for investment. If your object is investing, and if you try to to attract investors, use this framework to attract for investment by investors. If your issue is climate and climate-related impacts, use TCFD. And for compliance with regulations, with standards, with the laws and regulation, use CSRD. So no framework alone addresses the multiple requirements. Each framework is built for a specific target. Investment, usefulness, blah, or full impact, or compliance, or transformation. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, my last slide, that was a tulip from the mountain of Alborz, unloaded, and so I thank you all for your attention, and the floor is open for your question and comments. Please leave your message, leave your comments and questions in the message box. My colleagues collect comments and questions, and I'll answer all of them. Okay. Thank you so much for all of you that attending to this webinar. No question and no comments. I have a question. Yes, are there international law to punish companies that fail to comply with ESG requirements? Not yet. Only in some frameworks that are mandatory in EU system, or some countries have local regulation and laws. The punishing of companies is done, but in all over the world, it's not mandatory. As I said, some frameworks are mandatory, and some of them are voluntary and is optional for use. In recent years, some countries try to have obligation about the ESG frameworks and ESG use in the companies and organizations, but it's not worldwide. No question? Okay. Thank you very much for your attending this webinar. I hope see you in upcoming session of our educational program. The next session is a presentation about the ESG reporting system. It's an important issue, and I hope see you in this presentation in next month. Thank you so much, and goodbye.